Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hi. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Hello? Yes? Oh, wonderful. Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock Eastern Time here in New York. Welcome to the launch party for Notes from a Single Gal in the City. I'm very excited that you're all joining me, and for the next 90 minutes, we're going to go on a fun journey through the beginning of the blog, which inspired the book, do a little reading, a little Q&A. We have a very special surprise guest that will be joining us in about a half an hour's time. But thank you all for being here. I guess I would say my longest love affair has been with the written word. I've been keeping a journal since I was 7, and I'm now on volume 106. Hi, Candy, all the way from France. And Aruba's in the house. Hi, Musa. Hi. So I started to say yes. So keeping a journal is something that I've done since at a very young age. And in fact, I have my first one here. This is the very first diary that launched it all back in 1981. I even have when I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch Princess Diana and Prince Charles get married with my mom. So yes, writing has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. And hi, Carl, welcome. I'll be interrupting myself here and there to say hi to everyone. Along with obviously writing being one of my main passions, I had the very good fortune of growing up with 2 parents who were madly in love with each other. So you could say love, the search for it, its various iterations was a part of my childhood, throughout my childhood, because I had such a great example. And from a pretty young age, certainly by adolescence, I was kind of known for that. At the age of, I think I was either 14 or 15, when some friends gave me this mug. I don't know if you can see it. Great lovers, Marilyn, Scarlett, Mae West, and me. Needless to say, I was far from being anyone's lover at the age of 14, but I was already well known for being a fan of all things related to love and romance. I watched the soaps, my favorite being Santa Barbara. My dear friend Candy, who's joining us from France, she knows all too well my favorite couple from that series, Cruz and Eden, who actually get a mention in Notes from Single Gal in the City. Hi, Lee. Hi, Jasmine. Hi, Jen. Hi, Tracy. Hi, welcome. So without further ado, I figured we would start off going way back into the vault, starting with the very first entry from Single Gal in the City, which interestingly enough was exactly 13 years ago, July 8th. 2008, July 2nd, 2008, excuse me. So this is entitled A New Chapter, and I have to give props to my dear friend and previous colleague, Carla Cacavalli, because she was the one who encouraged me to start a blog. She would see me out gallivanting, coming in from dates, and she'd say, when are you going to start a blog? When are you going to start a blog? And this is going back, before blogs were kind of what they are now, and influencers were even a glimmer in the internet's eye. So finally, July 2nd, 2008, I did start, and here was that very first entry. For more than 2 decades now, I've been keeping a journal. Long before there was a Bridget Jones or even a Carrie Bradshaw, I was writing about my adventures in and out of the big city, in and out of the dating world. Now, as I hover on the precipice of the big 3-5, I can't help wondering if it's time to supplement my private portable writings with something in the blogosphere. And so it's that, with some encouragement from several of my fabulous friends, Single Gal in the City is at long last making her online debut. I make no apologies for appropriating my title from that little HBO series that became a cultural phenomenon. Life in my beloved New York is very much like Sex in the City, minus the great sex and expensive shoes. Like Miss Bradshaw, I cherish my friendships, adore my city, and do a lot of reflecting about the opposite sex. But when it comes to my healthy appetite for both carbs and Cosmos, and my penchant for Payless over Manolos, I'm definitely more of a Bridget Jones kind of girl. Single gal in the city will mingle past and present together, juxtaposing my current day adventures and reflections with entries from more than 90 handwritten journals. From the ghost of a long-distance love to the 300 roses I once received, I've experienced some memorable affairs of the heart. I'm looking forward to sharing these adventures and the ones to come. So that was the first entry that kicked it off all those years ago. And one of the questions actually that someone asked is what inspired me to start my diary all those years ago, if it was because of a guy, and the answer is no. I think writing has just always been in my DNA. Having said that, in diary number 1, there is a little mention of someone named Brian who I don't remember, but apparently I was very smitten with because he's also in diary number 2. Now, keep in mind, these entries are from when I was 7 years old. So, just to give you an idea of how I was at the age of 7 when it came to affairs of the heart. So, this is October 28th, 1981. As I said, I was 7 years old. Dear Diary, I love Brian. He's cute, sexy, and adorable. One day I will marry him. I was pretty confident of that at the age of 7. Like I said, I have no recollection of who this Brian guy is. Okay, Thursday, November 12th, 1981. Dear Diary, I fell in love with Brian 1 week ago. He loved me then, but he doesn't now. Help me. Such drama. Okay, November 21st. Dear Diary, my boyfriend has been loving me on and off. My life is all wrong. Love, Melissa. So, yeah, at the age of 7, I was still very caught up in the idea of love and romance. Brian, wherever you are, I hope you're living a happy life. So now we're going to go to some questions. This is from Rachel in Venice, California. Hi, Rachel. Did you publish the book yourself? What age did you start the diary at? So as I mentioned, I started the diary when I was 7. And yes, I published Notes from a Single Gal in the City myself. I had initially, years back, tried to go the traditional publishing route. That didn't really go anywhere, and I have to say the self-publishing landscape has really changed dramatically. And initially I was just going to do an ebook, and then several people were kind enough to say, you know, are you going to have a print edition? And Amazon really makes it very turnkey. So yes, I am publishing myself, and it's very exciting, and it's nice to not have the long lead time that you would have with traditional publishing. I have a number of friends who have written books, and usually I would say it's like a 2-year process from the time you submit your final manuscript through editing, pre-promotion, and it's nice to just finish it and be able to finally get it out there. So thank you for that, Rachel. From Laura in Connecticut. How long did it take you to write and publish? That's a great question. So I've actually been on and off working on a memoir for, oh my gosh, 10, 11 years now. And as I was in the process of finishing that, I realized there was a lot of stuff that didn't really fit in the memoir, and I kind of wanted to do something that was a little more fun and lighthearted. And so that's when I got the idea to do something that was a little more like the blog. So this is, you know, kind of a quick, fun summer read, 135 pages. So I would say this piece I put together the last 2 or 3 months from stuff that I already had that was originally going to be in the memoir. So thank you for that, Laura. From Toslin in New Orleans. Hi, Toslin. At what age in the book do I start detailing my dating history? So the blog started when I was 35. The book mentions some dating experiences in my 20s, but I would say primarily is focused on 30, 35 and up. Okay. From Lisa in New York City. What were your emotions while writing the book? Did it make you nostalgic, sad, angry? I would kind of say none of the above. I enjoyed revisiting everything. One of my favorite quotes is, "The only reason to look back is to realize how far you've come." And so that was kind of the way that I felt writing this book, kind of going back and realizing that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and where I want to be, and all of those experiences that I had led me to where I am today. So so I would say more than anything, it was just fun and probably a little cathartic. There were certain things that I had forgotten, certain things I didn't necessarily want to remember, but it was really an enjoyable process, and I would say it was a blessing, certainly during the last year and a half with the crazy pandemic that we've all experienced, to have the gift of a distraction in the form of the writing. And I had kind of had the book on a shelf for a while, and then one of my best friends, who's never written anything, she banged out her first screenplay, I think, in a month. And it inspired me. So I was like, okay, I don't think I can really call myself a writer if during a pandemic, when there's literally nothing to do, I don't get this thing done. So so it's been a really enjoyable process. And the feedback from everyone has just been a dream, because when you're a writer, you always kind of have a little insecurity. And I remember years ago, a colleague of mine from WNBC, back in my TV news days, invited me to join him at the Writers Guild Awards. And this is, of course, people that are at the apex of their career, writers for television, film, and I remember several of the speeches, the theme was the kind of latent insecurity that you have as a writer. So when you're received with love and encouraged, it just means everything. So so that's a very long-winded answer to that. What else? Okay. So now I figure I will read some excerpts from the book. Here it is. Thank you, everyone, again, for taking the time to join me for this. And also, I'm seeing that people ordered the book, so that's very, very nice to hear. So these are just a couple of little vignettes that'll give you a taste for what you're going to experience in the book. My online profile stated in paragraph 1 that I am not a hookup kind of girl. Unfortunately, even spelling it out doesn't dissuade guys interested strictly in indoor activities. Like the OkCupid bachelor who in our first and last phone conversation alluded to his preferences in the bedroom 3 times in 5 minutes. Another guy, dubbing himself Strange Sounds, went the full Monty with a close-up of his nether regions. His profile left little to the imagination. I'm really good at a number of things, most of which are best demonstrated in person. I have to be honest, I would go mad without some form of daily sexual release. TMI. The trend of no filter emerged once again with a 31-year-old real estate analyst. When he made a self-deprecating comment, I said playfully, "You're much cuter than Brad Pitt. Just for saying that, I'm totally giving you oral sex for a year." A simple thank you would have sufficed. The promise of less raunch and more etiquette led me to join The Right Stuff. Billed as an introduction network for Ivy League grads, the site requires you to send a polite no thanks after hearing from a member you're not interested in. Things were going pretty well. With one bachelor, we made it to a 3rd date, part of which we spent at his place. He thoughtfully made me a cup of tea. I thanked him, to which he responded, "This isn't my first rodeo." Charming. Okay, one more. Oh, let's see. Okay, Candy is asking, did Steve read the book? What was his reaction? But about the content. He did read it, actually, Candy, and I'm very pleased to say that he enjoyed it. And he actually, I think this is a direct quote, said, the subject matter isn't my cup of tea, but I couldn't put it down. So, and that's from a guy. So I like to think that, implicit biases notwithstanding, that guys will find something to take away from this book too. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. During my 4-month stint as a Sydney resident, 2 hunky Australians made quite the impression when we were introduced through mutual friends. Cheeky Travis was a boat dealer who played rugby in his spare time with the body to show for it. He came on to me while visiting from Australia's west coast. We got to know each other over drinks at a local pub, eventually locking lips. Back at our friend's house, Travis excused himself while I curled up under a blanket on the couch. When he returned, he slid in next to me, naked as a jaybird. Upon informing Travis our attraction would go unconsummated, he could not grasp why. Come on, you're an American woman on holiday. A less enticing rationale I have yet to hear. I responded the only way I knew how, with uncontrollable laughter. Interestingly enough, that's not the only time that somebody tried that. And as a male friend said to me, sometimes it works, but 2 times it didn't work on this person. Let's see. Question from my dear friend Lori in Brooklyn. Is the guy who labels you by where you live in there? The guy who labels me by where I live. Oh, yes. Yes. He is. He's in there. Yes. Oh, wait. No. That's another guy. One of the less romantic, one of many unromantic elements of online dating is when you're on a date and if someone happens to leave their phone while they go to the bathroom and you see that you're filed away next to several other women that they're dating. So I believe one guy that I was out with had me filed as Melissa, Upper East Side, and I remember thinking, wow, how many people are you going out with that you need to specify what neighborhood I live in? So he's not in there, but there is actually another guy who, now I'm really dating myself, back in the days of the BlackBerry, he left his BlackBerry on the bar when he went to get a drink, and I saw that I was filed next to Nicole J. Date. So I'm all for, being organized, but clearly, when you're dating in that much volume, I don't really know what to say about that. So I'm going to dig into one of the old diaries again. This is volume 94, and this was actually an entry from September of 2008, a couple of months after I started the blog. Okay, here we go. I've made a career, dear diary, I've made a career out of obsessing over every boyfriend's Mr. Right potential, literally driving myself crazy at times over the question of whether I wanted to be with each guy long term. What needless misery I put myself through. Now, at long last, I've learned to be happy right where I am, to not pine away for someday. While I look forward to meeting Mr. Right, and of course to partying like a rock star when we tie the knot, I'm not letting that get in the way of enjoying everything I have right now, including some nice distractions that light my fire. Cheers to being single gal in the city. It's interesting. As I was getting ready for tonight, I was looking up statistics on how many single people there are, and actually half of America, which amounts to, I want to get this right, 126.9 million people are single in this country. And what I always found was interesting when I was doing the blog, and I did it for 6 years, over 1,100 posts, is that once you get to a certain age, you're made to feel like an anomaly, even though the reality is, as I said, 126.9 million people in this country are single. So I think that's kind of one of the messages of the book is there's nothing wrong with being single, and there's also nothing wrong with wanting to find someone, and I feel very blessed that I did find someone. But everyone's timeline is different, and I think today, despite the fact that, we like to think we've evolved and, we're more modern in our mindsets, I think that there is a certain stigma to being single over the age of 35, which I was. So I just, hope this book can help people who are single in their 30s tap into, what can still be fun about it as you reach a point where, you are kind of biologically wired to want to get off the dating treadmill. But it happens at a different time for everyone, and there's no expiration date for finding love. I certainly have had the good fortune of learning that myself. Hello, Dave from Australia. One of my dear friends from Sydney, Australia, Dave, is on. Friend for, 25 plus years. And actually, Dave, yeah, I said volume 94, but I'm actually now currently up to volume 106. So still handwriting. There was a brief, let's see, from my dear friend Musa, bottom line, what is the secret to unsingling yourself? That's a great question. I hate to say something that you probably have heard a 1,000 million times, because I heard it all the time when I was single, and that is, it happens when you're not looking, when you least expect it. I think what I would say is that do the things that you enjoy and live your life the way that makes you happy. I think for a long time I twisted myself into a pretzel. I tried speed dating, online dating, I joined a co-ed sports league, I mentioned that in the book. I tried all these different things, thinking, okay, I'm not trying hard enough, And in the end, when love found me, I was doing something I really enjoy. I was listening to my favorite 80s cover band, Jesse's Girl, on a moonlit night at sea on the 80s cruise. And it happened. And I wasn't looking for it. I was by myself on deck that night, and so I would say just really be true to yourself and what makes you happy. And I really do believe that in the course of doing that, you encounter someone special. And I also think too, it's something I wrote about a lot on my blog, and I mentioned this in the book as well, kind of getting out of your comfort zone, because I think it's very easy when you reach a certain age and you're still single to kind of be in a routine and to not want to break out of that, especially because you get to a point where it's just, oh my gosh, I'm still in this crazy world of dating. So I always kind of tried to do things that would mix it up and feel a little less monotonous. I was, a very early believer in speed dating, and I remember people looking at me like I was crazy. But I think, it's kind of like anything else that you do for a long time. I remember writing in one of my diaries, it wasn't so much that I was completely miserable being single, but I wanted to do something else instead of going on a million first dates. I wanted to invest in a relationship and a future with someone. But in the meantime, that's the upside today. As frustrating as online dating and some of these things are, there's so much variety out there and so many different ways to connect with people. And I think when you reach a point where you're feeling fatigue with it, you take a break and then also try something you haven't done before. So there is lots of fun about it, though. My friend Lori in Brooklyn says, yes, absolutely. And I think also giving yourself permission to have fun. I know after I turned 30, I felt suddenly this pressure that, oh my gosh, I have to find the right person. And of course, that pressure intensifies as you get on in your 30s. And I used to joke that as I was approaching 40, it was like a blinking neon sign that just kept flashing, you're still single, you're still single, you're still single. And then after all the dread, once I was officially 40, I just thought, oh, okay, it's not so bad. The world didn't end. And years before, a good friend of mine had said, do you think you could handle it if, you're in your 40s and you're still single, you never meet someone? And that day came, I was 40, and I thought, well, it's not exactly the way I pictured it, but life was still good. So you never know what's right around the corner. And it's been a long and twisty road to get here at the age of 47. But I wouldn't have had it any other way, because I think too a lot of times we try and tell ourselves, okay, I'm ready, and I, like I said, when I turned 30, I was like, okay, I'm 30, I need to get serious and settle down. But the truth is, I wasn't ready, and I don't think I really was until my 40s. So everyone's timeline is different, and I think it's just, about being true to yourself, like I said, and respecting that you're on your own journey and you don't have to compare yourself to anybody else. So, what else? I think it might be time to introduce our special guest. So hopefully I can figure out how to do that. Bear with me 1 second. This is actually my first Facebook Live. Okay, cancel. Yeah. Bear with me. See. Oh, hi. Hi, Lisa. Oh, he was right. Okay. Okay. I might have to switch to my phone to do this. Yes, Candy. Yes, the special guest is here. The host of my favorite podcast, Stuck in the 80s, and my future husband, Steve Spears, is tonight's special guest. If I can figure out how to patch him. So let's see. I'm going to switch to my phone. Okay. All right. Live video. Okay. All right. Here we go. I'm switching to my phone, and hopefully I'm going to be able to patch Steve in, so bear with me, guys. Okay. Is it Benji? Actually, speaking of Benji, would you like to make a little cameo? Okay. A special cameo from Mr. Benji. Hello. Oh, okay. Try clicking on you now. Okay. Okay. Click. Oh my. Okay, wait. Hang on, guys. I promise you this will be worth it. Clicking on the phone or on the desktop. Bring on the B-Man. Okay. Starting live video. Alright, while we're figuring this out, by special request. Now, actually, this guy is a perfect illustration of how life is what happens when you're making other plans. Growing up, I was not a dog person. My grandparents had a miserable French poodle named Teddy that I nicknamed Cujo, as in Stephen King's Cujo, because he was so miserable. And I was never a dog person. And then, oh gosh, I guess 5 years ago, I went through a pretty horrible depression. And one of my brothers said, you should get a dog. And I thought, I've never been a dog person. But, especially living in New York, you walk down the street, you see a lot of people with their dogs. And I thought, well, maybe. So then I went on petfinder.com, which is kind of like the match.com for rescues. And I saw this little face. And I would say about a month and a half later, after doing an interview providing some character references and doing a virtual home visit, he was driven from Georgia. And I always like to say that's why he's such a gentleman, because he's from Georgia. But this is the best decision I ever made, right here. Right here. So yes, like I said, I was never a dog person, but needless to say, 22 pounds of Shih Tzu cuteness changed all that. And I would say Benji was really the turning point for me. He kind of, I remember, as one of my good friends said just before I adopted him, that he would fill all the spaces. And he really did. So that I finally felt that after a lot of years of kind of feeling like I was missing something or missing someone, I didn't have that feeling anymore. I was happy and whole within myself, and I think that's what enabled love to come into my life. All right, special guest, tell me again. See, this is why it helps to be engaged to someone who has a podcast, because he can talk you through technical things. All right, tell me what I'm clicking on again, so we can hopefully patch you in here. Yeah, no, Diana, Benji is from Georgia. Yep. it was really cute when I adopted him. They sent pictures in real time of him, like in the back seat on his way here. And when I went to pick him up, to try not to get mushy about it, I went to pick him up. He was staying at a foster's home in Queens, and the screen door opened. He came literally like running right up to me and into my arms, and that was it. Instant love. I had initially done the foster to adopt, and the next day I remember emailing the rescue. I said, send me the adoption contract. That's my dog. So, reading the instructions, okay? Oh, I know what we'll do while we're figuring this out. He's right up there with Harry Connick. All right, so I don't just so you all know, skewer people in the book, and there's actually a very sweet story about a lovely guy that I met in Ireland named Pete. Some of you may recall years ago, about 11 years ago, I did 2 dating blitzes. I went across the country, and then I went to 6 countries in Europe, kind of exploring the question of what is it like to be single outside of New York, and is it just me? Would my love life be different if I lived somewhere else? I learned a lot on that trip. I learned, one, that it's hard to be single in big cities everywhere. I would argue that it's hardest in New York, but there's just a sort of universal struggle when it comes to dealing with a lot of the ups and downs of dating today. But I started my European dating blitz in Ireland, and one of the local papers had posted something about my trip. Lovely guy named Pete that I'm still very good friends with. He sent me a nice note after reading about me in the paper, and we had a beautiful evening together, which I think just illustrates that, again, if you take a chance, you never know where it's going to lead. So here we go. This was my evening with Irish Pete. And even my fiance, after he read this, said, "What happened to Irish Pete? He was so nice." And he is. He's very nice. Cupid himself could not have dreamed up a more delightful evening than the one I shared with Dublin-based bachelor Pete. I was in Ireland doing research, and Pete read about it on a local website and emailed me. The 3 photos he sent were of a handsome blue-eyed guy with dark curly hair and an irresistible smile. His Gmail and Twitter profile pictures looked like someone else altogether. Exactly who was I meeting? When I walked up to the entrance of Dublin's famed Trinity College, my heart skipped a beat. Pete wasn't quite like the photos he sent. He was even cuter. All right, here we go. Tap the top of your news feed to start. Okay. All right. Tap 1, 2, 4. Okay. Here we go. All right. We're going to do this. Irish Pete. Irish Pete is actually married now and has a kid. Sorry. Okay, tap at the top of my news feed. Okay. All right. Okay, where am I? All right, let's do this. I'm gonna call so that we can do this Q&A. I promise you it's gonna be worth it. I'm sure he doesn't have his phone next to him. Skip to the last line, I think. Okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna continue the story of Irish Pete, and then we will figure out how to patch the special guest in. Okay, where was I? I was in Dublin at Trinity College with Irish Pete. Okay. So Pete wasn't quite like the photos he sent. He was even cuter. I've been looking forward to this for a while, he said as he bent down to kiss me on the cheek. Me too, I said, returning his smile. A perfect beginning. Our first stop was a cozy coffee house. I quickly discovered Pete and I had a lot in common, including a sense of adventure and love of travel. Pete also shared that he enjoys long bike rides, working hard for his family's company, and dabbling in musical theater. The more I learned about him, the more I could see what a great guy he is. Pete mentioned his upcoming weekend visit to New York and birthday. "Happy birthday," I said. "I'm sorry you won't be here for it," he answered sweetly. Pete asked me what New York men are like. My first thought was they don't hold a candle to their Irish counterparts, especially when Pete told me, "This is the best evening I've had in a while." "Me too," I said, meaning it. Suddenly it felt like the many lackluster dates I went on before this trip happened ages ago. For our final stop, Pete took me to that bar named for the Guinness Brewery's copper vats so I could experience traditional Irish music. I did not want the night to end. Pete walked me back to my hotel. "If you need anything while you're here, 24/7, just call or text me." And then, with a quick hug and kiss on the cheek, he was gone. I couldn't stop smiling. Spending time with Pete restored my faith in romance and the existence of good guys. The easy chemistry between us, the thrill of possibility, powerful reminders of why it's always worth taking a chance and putting yourself out there. You just never know when someone great is going to cross your path. And we stayed in touch by Facebook and email, and when he was in New York a couple of times a few years after that, we met up for coffee and lunch, and he's coming to New York next spring with his wife and son, and he reached out to me. So you never know. Okay, wait. I'm on the phone with you. All right. Tap Steve Spears, Lori is saying. Okay. Okay, I'm tapping. Ooh, for Irish guys. Well, Connor, you were my first, so. Connor, who's joining us from across the pond, had one of the best lines on my Europe dating trip. I can still remember it just like yesterday. We were talking about the differences between dating in the U.S. and dating in Europe. And it's interesting because Europeans are much more traditionally minded when it comes to dating, much more open-minded when it comes to sex. I remember Connor saying, by way of example, that, in Europe, after, you've maybe had a one-night stand with someone, and you'll be talking to a friend about it, you'll say, we had sex, I did a line of coke on her rear end, so I figure maybe I'll give her a call and we'll go out. So yes, I still remember that all these years later. But yes, I have no complaints about Irish guys. Pete and a couple of the other guys that I met, because I was in Dublin for a week on that trip, they were all perfect gentlemen, very charming. So yeah, I think New York could stand to import some of that Irish charm and gentlemanly behavior. Okay, the ongoing saga of trying to patch in special guest. Tap Steve. Okay. All right. I'm trying to do that, but then it says if I tap him, my live video ends. Okay. Do you see a little icon that looks like a person and a little screen? No, I don't. So how do I... I promise you guys, this will be worth it. We can do this. We can do this. Do I see a little icon? We need more Irish guys. Yes, that is true. I completely agree with that. We need less of the New York grown variety and more Irish guys for sure. And Floridians. Okay, do I see a little icon that looks like a person and a little screen? Is this from... Lori, is that from the desktop or from my phone? Hi, Beth. Okay. All right. While our technical difficulties continue. All right. Here's another example of why we need more of the Irish sensibility. As women, we are made to feel it is naive, unreasonable even, to want the wooing of pre-internet times. At what point does being accommodating cross over into compromising what you believe in? As courting has become an optional effort, so too has the art of seduction. Getting frisky comes, so to speak, first. One randy 48-year-old guy ended the evening with a kiss and fervent declaration, "I want to be inside you." Putting it out there took on a whole new meaning for my cousin. While chatting online with a guy, for the first time, he made an unusual proposition. "Would you like to Skype in the nude?" Thankfully, that's one I haven't been asked. Okay, the add person icon. All right, let's see. Where's the add person icon? Okay, let's see. Okay. Not that add person icon. Why am I not seeing an add person icon? Okay. Okay. Hi, Neil. Okay, I'm trying to add dashboard options. Okay, wait, let's see here. Stream setup. More. Okay. Neil, you're a technical AV expert. How do I add someone to this? Stream viewing. Oh. What am I don't see an add person icon. Dashboard. Does anyone have any suggestions? I'm trying to stream setup more. Hit that and tap. How do I'm not seeing, what's the thing is I'm not seeing it's like a little drawn person. Okay. On my desktop? I have my dear friend Lori trying to help me with this. Thank you, Lori. Okay. It's like a little drawn person. I was trying to copy and paste it, but okay. Can I do it from my desktop? Live video. Oh, click it to join. Okay. So, all right, special guest, can you click something that says join? On speakerphone. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. This will go tap at the top of your news feed. Tap start live video. All right, I think we might have to on my desktop. All right, we're gonna try. If this doesn't work, then I'm gonna take the suggestion that Beth had and we'll put him on speakerphone. All right, tap at the top of your news feed. Okay. Yeah, but then that says I'm gonna end the live video, which I don't want to do. So, to join video at the bottom of the video. No, I don't see that. Alright, I think we're going to have to go old school here. So, I have an idea. How about, are you, special guest, Steve, are you on WhatsApp? Why don't I call you and then We'll do it that way. Let's see something. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. All right, special guest, call me. You've already done what most of that post says. All right. I think you just... Hi! All right. All right, call me, Steve, and we'll put you on speakerphone. I think that's the way we're going to have to do this. Of course you no longer have WhatsApp on your phone. Of course. All right, well then just call me. Call me, I'll put you on speaker. All right. Standing by for the phone call. We're going to go old school here. Call me. All right. I'll call him. Hello?
Hello.
Can you guys hear him? All right.
Turn your volume down.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Can people hear me or no?
Can you guys hear him? Introduce yourself.
Can people hear me? This is Steve.
Can you guys hear him? Hello?
I don't think anyone can hear me.
Yeah, I don't think they can. Shoot.
It's just going to
Yeah.
do feedback anyway if you have me talking into your speaker.
Darn
like
it.
that. Why don't I just send you the question? I'll just have to send you the questions in chat.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay. Technology does suck. You hear him. All right. Well, technology really does suck. Let me try one more. I don't see it. Gosh darn it. All right. Well, all right. Well, couldn't patch him in, but I have his questions. So we'll do that. I'll answer the questions. Okay. He says just gonna do feedback anyway. Sounds perfectly clear. You can all hear him. Oh, all right. So then, okay. All right. Let's try this again. Okay. Thanks for your patience, guys. Hello?
Hi.
All right. You can hear him, everyone? Give us a thumbs up emoji if the answer is yes. Go ahead. Say, do testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. This is Steve Spears from the Stuck in the 80s podcast. Hey, welcome to Stuck in the 80s. It's your host.
Woohoo! All right. You guys, you can hear him? Somebody comment and say, yes, we can hear him. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So now, cheers. Fire away. Fire away. Okay.
Here we go. The interview I've long dreamed of conducting is finally going to happen.
Keep in mind he's saying this as somebody that has interviewed like dozens of famous recording artists, but okay. Go ahead. Hundreds, sorry, hundreds.
Okay, if we do this right, it'll be just as good as the Steve Perry one, I promise.
He's interviewed Steve Perry. Amazing. Okay, yes.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
Okay, first of all,
yes.
Must issue a blanket apology from all males for some of the incredibly stupid and asinine things that they've said to you over the decades. I mean, that's the one thing that kept coming up when I read your book. I'm amazed at the stupidity of my gender at times.
Well, apology accepted.
For those who are wondering, I did read the book.
You
I
did?
read it backwards.
Yeah.
when she finished it, she gave me the last chapter to read, and I liked it so much that I read the previous chapter, then I read the previous chapter, then I read the previous chapter.
So feel free to time travel when you're reading the book if you want to read it.
So, first question. I mean, when you were doing the blog, and you were, I remember you telling me you had told people one day I'm going to turn this into a book. I mean, there were guys, so they were aware that their opinions were kind of being noted, per se. Were there any of the guys who basically said, "Oh, please God, just don't write about me"?
Interestingly, no. So my sort of rule of thumb was if I went out with a guy more than twice, then I would, let him know about the blog. I was always very mindful of not, using last names or anything that would be, revealing enough to identify who the person was. For the most part, in fact, I dated one guy who was constantly hounding me to be in the blog more. And then as time went on, I did encounter more people that, did not want to be on the blog. And so when I met someone really nice, I decided actually to not mention him at all. And he was from Mexico. He went back to Mexico. We dated for a couple months. And then right before he left, he said to me, "And you never even wrote about me on your blog." And I was like, "Really? I'm trying to, be more discreet." And so yeah, I never had complaints from guys that, I was dating on any kind of a regular basis, because if I was dating them more than twice, then, obviously, they weren't being skewered. But it was a delicate balance, and it was one of the reasons too that after 6 years I decided to close up shop. One of my very dear friends, another Steve in my life, my dear friend Steve from London, I remember him saying to me when he visited, if you don't want to be single gal in the city for the rest of your life, you might want to consider rebranding. So that's when I decided to evolve the blog into what it is now, New York City Gal, which isn't, really about dating, but just more about life in New York and friendship and meals and that kind of thing.
So wait a minute. Here's the lost piece of news. So Irish Pete's name is not actually Pete?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't make up a phony name for Irish Pete?
No. To be clear, the people that do not come off well, of the male gender, they all are given, pseudonyms. But Irish Pete was a sweetheart. So, and he knew about the blog, and he, after that, wonderful evening we had in Dublin, he sent me a beautiful email, and he thanked me for what I wrote. So, I figure if I'm writing something nice about you, I can use your real name, especially since it's only the first name. So.
Okay. So, this book is actually a prequel, or it's actually I guess a prequel is the right word, to another book that's coming out in the fall. How are the two books different?
Great question. So as I mentioned towards the beginning of tonight's event, this was actually an offshoot of the memoir. But I would say this is kind of like a prequel, kind of like an amuse-bouche, I guess you could call it. The next book, Tales from a Former Bachelorette, is really much more of a memoir. So this is kind of, Notes from a Single Gal in the City is very much like the blog, kind of frothy, good summer beach read. Tales from a Former Bachelorette is more of a traditional memoir that will include lots of entries from the diary, things that I did not share on the blog. But like the blog, it will skip back and forth in time. So the way I've structured it is there's one chapter that, is covering the present moment, and then the next chapter is a diary that goes back in time. So it's kind of two timelines happening throughout the course of the book. So that's how they're different.
Let me take you back to a decade that I have a particular fondness for.
The 70s? Oh, 80s.
And I'm assuming your first ever date would have happened in the 80s, probably, knowing how old you are compared to how old I am. Do you
I'm 47, he's 53, just for those that don't know.
Do you have any strong... Can you remember your first date? What can you tell us about it?
I can't remember my first date, but I can remember my first embarrassing moment on a date of sorts. My teenage crush, David Schwartz, I think his name was. And I was probably 13, 14. So he came over, we were watching a movie, and I think dad, mom were out or something. So we were in my room watching the movie, and his hand started to, travel. And just as that was starting to happen, suddenly the door to my bedroom opens and dad's standing right there. And I don't think I've ever jumped so quickly, so high off my bed. So it wasn't so much a date, but that's one of the early ones that I remember.
How old were you?
I was 14, maybe? Yeah.
Oh my God. What's the most romantic thing someone has, that someone you dated, what's the most romantic thing that someone you dated has done for you?
I would probably have to say 300 roses, 25 dozen for my 25th birthday. Really lovely Englishman that I dated for about a year and a half. First, he had surprised me with 5 dozen roses for 5 months of dating. And then 2 months later, on my 25th birthday, 25 dozen. I talk about this in the book, and it was literally all different shades: red, yellow, peach, white, pink, 9 different vases. And and true story. So the day after the roses were delivered, I woke up and I was feeling like a little lightheaded, and I kind of had a headache. And I was talking to a friend, and she said, you need to sleep with the door open because that's a lot of roses consuming a great deal of oxygen. So a romantic gesture, but one that literally left me a little lightheaded.
Well, that's a good lead into the next question.
Okay.
Valentine's Day.
Uh-huh.
To men, that is a struggle of a holiday. What is your take on that, and what was the most memorable Valentine's Day thing that you've done?
I would say memorable. It's like a very New York thing. I went ice skating in Rockefeller Center, and I think it was only like a first or second date. This is many years ago, like 20 plus years ago. And it was kind of that rare February night in New York that wasn't too cold. You didn't need to have a coat on. So that was lovely. And what was also nice was I came home to a dozen roses from someone else that was in the rotation. So yeah, that was a good Valentine's Day. And as for Valentine's Day as a holiday, I've always been a big fan of it, and not so much as exclusively a couple's holiday. And I write about this in the book too, that if you go to the greeting card aisle on Valentine's Day, you don't just see greeting cards for significant others. You see for friends, for family, for pets. And over the years, I've been lucky to receive flowers from my parents on Valentine's Day, or from my high school prom date, who very cutely sent me a teddy bear when we hadn't been in touch for a while. So I really think Valentine's Day is just a celebration of love and of the people that you have in your life. And it doesn't hinge on your relationship status. So
I don't think Benji's ever sent me a Valentine's Day card.
No, but I mean, he got you a very nice Father's Day card.
He did.
Yeah.
I did appreciate it. And a T-shirt on top of that.
Yes, and a T-shirt, yes.
We mentioned ice skating on a date. I'm assuming this is not going to be the same answer, but what's the most adventurous thing you've done on a date?
Adventurous and big mistake. So this is actually in the next book, Tales from a Former Bachelorette. I've always been of the mindset that, if someone suggests something, I always try and, unless it's something really crazy, I always try and say yes, because if anyone's going to take the time to put some thought into doing something creative on a first date, I'll say yes. So this online guy, suggested we go bike riding in Central Park. So I thought we were going to rent bikes and go bike riding. Well, he had a different agenda in mind. All right, I'll get back to you on that in a second, Dave. So I show up to meet him, and he has a tandem bike. So now keep in mind, this is somebody I've never met before, and I'm going on the back of the tandem bike. So get on the tandem bike, and now I'm staring at the rear end of this guy that I have just met. And so So, we're riding and time's going by, and I lean forward and I'm like, where are we going? We're going to Brooklyn. So, literally over the Brooklyn Bridge. I cannot even tell you how sore my rear end was by the end of this trip. I mean, you have to imagine going miles into Brooklyn, then miles back, and I tried to like lose him at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge. He's like, no, I'll take you to the subway. And literally, I can't even tell you how sore I was. And from that moment on, I decided, okay, no athletic sports on first dates. It's just not a good idea. So yeah.
I'd like to think that all guys have in their memory a list of really bad excuses that they've come up with for canceling a date. My mom's sick, my grandmother had a stroke, my dog broke its leg. What are some of the more memorable excuses that a guy has given to you?
I wish I could tell you memorable excuses, but that's the sad thing is in this day and age, it would be nice if someone tried to invent an excuse, but no. I mean, it's just, oh no, I had to work late, or I had one guy who claimed he completely forgot that we were supposed to meet on a Friday. And then a lot of times too, then they'll resurface like you didn't have plans. He sent me a text 2 days later, like, hey, what's happening? And I said, we had plans on Friday. Oh, we did? I guess I kind of screwed that up. Yeah, you did. So.
Likewise, have you had to invent any?
All right, hold the phone. I'm getting a few real-time questions here. Is tandem bike romantic or a bit creepy killer circus vibe? Yeah, probably creepy killer circus vibe. And then my dear friend Dave from Australia, what about Zumval? Zumval was a little teddy bear of mine that Dave and other people decided to bandy about when I was on a bus tour around Europe many moons ago where I met Dave. I don't know where Zumval is. I think he's long gone. So, continue. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, surely you have some memorable excuses that you've used to cancel dates, or do you just kind of just go straight for the jugular?
No, I don't think I've gone for the jugular. I think... I don't think I've come up with anything. I will say one time when I was on a date that was so dreadfully boring, I did pull the, going into the bathroom and pretending there was an emergency with a friend of mine that had called on my cell phone. But no, I don't think I've ever come up with any crazy excuses for canceling a date. So.
Okay, here we get down to the nitty-gritty ones. Assuming the day comes, and I know that it will, that Hollywood comes calling and wants to turn your books into a TV show or movie, what actress would you want to portray you?
I would say Jennifer Goodwin. She was in He's Just Not That Into You, and I think she was also in that ABC series Once, based on the fairy tales. She and I kind of have a similar look. She's brunette with blue eyes. I think she was also in Mona Lisa Smile. So I would say she'd be my first pick.
And go ahead and tell people what you always tell me would be my doppelganger.
Oh yes, your doppelganger. So actually, this dovetails to another question. A friend of mine, Teresa in Long Island, asked me who would be my dream date other than Ricky Martin. Which, it wasn't a date, but I've already, I've had nice moments with Ricky. My dream date would actually be Nathan Fillion, who was the lead on one of my favorite series, Castle, and he was also in Firefly, and he is, in my opinion, Steve's doppelganger, ruggedly handsome. So that would be my dream date, and definitely on the celebrity pass list.
I definitely want to be the Firefly version of Nathan Fillion. I want to have the full space cowboy outfit and everything.
Of course you do.
Every guy does. Okay, final question. On my Second News podcast, we have a tradition where we end every interview with what we call the podcast time machine question. And the premise is that I have a time machine. We can go back in time and you can change a moment, or rewatch a moment, or tell yourself something. Tell your younger self something you need to know for the future. So if you could go back in time to any date or any relationship and change a detail or counsel yourself to behave differently, what would you do?
I love that question. There are a couple of answers to that. One, as far as doing things different, I really do believe that everything we go through prepares you for, the next thing and where you eventually arrive. But years ago, I really struggled with what I thought was a fear of commitment. I have since come to realize that it was more fear of committing to the wrong person. And I dated a guy in my 20s whose theory was, and I mentioned this in the book, that at 6 months, our relationship either gets serious or it doesn't. And I grabbed onto that. I was like, okay, 6 months. That's how much time I give someone. So I was dating this guy who I call Sam, who I talk about in the book, and I was having some doubts, and this was one of the reasons I really didn't think I'd ever want to get a dog. He was obsessed with his dogs, like, had to walk them every day, 7 days a week at 6 a.m., would never come to my place because of the dogs, and at 6 months, I panicked, and I broke it off very abruptly. And instead of confiding that, I wanted to take things slow, that I was, kind of scared and uncertain, I just bolted. And a month later, we got back together, but it was never the same. The trust was really broken and irreparable. And so I think I would go back and basically tell myself in that situation to be honest and to communicate. I will make a little slight dig at my late dad, may he rest in peace, because I confided to him that I was starting to freak out and that I wanted to tell this guy that to slow down. And he said, well, you can't slow it down. The only thing you can slow down is a wedding date, which only made me more panicked. In his defense, I was 30. He wanted to see me settled, as he used to say, but that just kind of made me withdraw even more into myself and not be honest about where I was. So I would go back to that moment for sure, and then just in general, I would go back and tell myself. Mom had my late mom, also very wise. She had a saying: "Borrowing trouble from the future will not deplete the supply." And I just spent so much time worrying and questioning and overanalyzing, and I think I would definitely go back and tell my younger self, you're doing fine. There's nothing wrong with you. And I think, kind of like I was saying before, that it's very easy, even today, when we see these amazing, single, age-defying celebrities like Jennifer Aniston, Jennifer Lopez, as women, we're still made to feel that there's something wrong with us if we're single. And so I would go back and tell myself that I'm right where I'm supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with me. And it's okay to not follow a certain trajectory, despite what we're made to feel based upon certain messages in pop culture and the media. So,
well done.
Thank you. All right. Well, now I'm going to turn the table on you for a moment, since you read the book and you're a guy. So, is there anything you want to share with everyone tonight about your perspective? Setting aside the fact, of course, that we're going to be getting married, but just leaving that out of the equation for this particular moment.
The feeling that I get from the book, and it's the same feeling I get from this book party, is just the overwhelming joy at the friendships that you have with people. Throughout your dating history and today, Neil, Lori,
Diana.
Diana. I don't know. I don't think a day goes by where I don't tell you that you've got the greatest group of friends, and I think it comes across in the book that way, that people love you and they support you, and it's just a wonderful thing for me to get a chance to see, and it's an honor to read your book and to ask you these questions today.
Don't make me cry. You're gonna smear my makeup. Well. I couldn't agree more with you. One of my favorite sayings has always been, friends are the family we choose for ourselves. And I have been so blessed throughout my life to have amazing friends. And hello, Toslin! Hello from New Orleans. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Okay, I will get to that in a second. She has a very funny story that I'll share with you. But my friends, I have just been so important and instrumental in my life, and that was something that I really learned from my mother. I mean, my mom and dad, as I said, were deliriously in love with each other, but my mom always made time for her friends. And I remember her saying to me at a very young age, you know, a woman always has to have friends regardless of her relationship status. And when we were living in Canada for a few years, my dad used to joke that he needed a dedicated phone line, you know, to cover all the calls between my mother and her friends. And, you know, typical old school guy who's like, I don't understand what they have to talk about. They talked yesterday. Why do they have to talk for an hour today? But I very happily inherited that from her. My friends are just everything to me. So now I'm going to disconnect you and applaud you for it was a lovely interview, Mr. Stuck in the 80s.
Thanks. Thank you, everyone, for all the kind words, and I'm looking forward to those I haven't met before. Looking forward to seeing you at the wedding.
All right, I'm hanging up on you now. So Miss Toslin says she went on a Match.com date, met a guy in the bar in the restaurant. He said hi for 2 seconds and said he forgot his wallet, went to his car, never came back. This hasn't happened to me, but I did that to somebody else. And this story is also in my book. So I love you too. So I was in Times Square at an arcade, child of the 80s, love arcade. I was at a Dave & Buster's and started talking to this guy, and he suggested we go for a drink, and there was I think like a Chevy's, one of the Mexican chains. And so we sit down and we're talking, not very long, maybe like 10 or 15 minutes. He said he was an aspiring actor. And I can't even describe it in a way that will make it sound as creepy and weird as it was, but all of a sudden, he tilted his head down. He was quiet for a minute. Then he looked up at me and he burst into tears. And I couldn't tell if he was practicing for a future role or overcome by my presence, but whatever it was, I got up, I said I was going to the bathroom, and I never came back. So no, that never happened to me, but I did do that to somebody else. So Candy says, do we plan to do a talk show together? That's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, I still am angling for a guest spot on the podcast, largely because, see, this is an example that even the perfect guy, he does not like the Goonies. And, you know, this is a problem. Yes, cancel the tandem bike ride for after the reception. The other thing I left out of the tandem bike story, literally within the first 3 minutes of getting on the back of the bike, I caught my jeans in the wheel chain, and my favorite pair of jeans ripped. That should have been my first clue to get off the tandem bike. But an hour later, there I was, schlepping into Brooklyn, looking at the rear end of a stranger that I had only known for like 5 minutes. Anyway, as I said, so we don't have any talk show plans, but if I can get a little spot on the podcast for one episode or so, but yeah. But yes, he is very, very good, as you can see. He's had his podcast for 16 years now, and a lot of you already know this. A lot of our wonderful 80s cruise friends who are here with us tonight. But the 80s is what really brought us together. As I mentioned, it was a night that I was listening to Jesse's Girl, favorite 80s cover band of all time, on this 80s cruise that happens annually. And here is also a perfect illustration of of serendipity. So I had been on the cruise twice, skipped 1 year. And so I guess it was year 4. And Steve and I had mutual friends, but we had never actually met. So there's a pre-party every year for the cruise, and the night before on this particular year, a mutual friend was going to say hello to him, and he and I were already Facebook friends at this point. So I went up, I said hello, gave him a quick hug. And the 80s cruise, which is amazing and wonderful, and if you love the 80s or just having a good time with great people, highly recommend. It's one of those things where you either run into the same people a lot or you never see them. So I saw Steve the night before the cruise, and then the night that we had this amazing conversation, listening to Jesse's Girl, and then I didn't see him the rest of the week until the last day when I went to one of his standing room only trivia sessions, which I had skipped out on before because it was too hard. And now I'm going to reveal the question that delayed this meeting from happening, the first cruise. So I go into the trivia session, and one of the first questions that Steve asks is, what was the original name of Huey Lewis in the News? Any guesses? Yeah, that was my reaction too. So it's American Express, for those that are wondering or not. And I heard that question, I was like, okay, this is SAT level 80s questions. Walked out, and as Steve likes to joke, we'd probably be married for 3 or 4 years now if he hadn't made the question so hard. Anyway, flash forward now a few years later, the end of this particular cruise when we finally met. It's the last day. I go to trivia, which now has thankfully been dumbed down a little for the rest of us, and very proud. I got 13 out of 15 questions right, and I went over to say hello, and he had lost his voice, an occupational hazard of doing multiple trivia sessions in 1 week with his fabulous co-host Brad Williams. And I remember thinking, why am I so disappointed that he lost his voice? So I was like, So that was it. I mean, we literally didn't spend more than, he jokes that we talked for 45 minutes that Jesse's Girl night. It was more like 15 or 20 because I wanted to listen to the music. But cruise ended, I came home, and 3 days later, he sent me a Facebook message, and that was it. We pretty much have communicated every single day since then, and here we are after 2-3 COVID postponements, finally getting ready to tie the knot in November. So yeah, it's just like I've said tonight, you really never know when and where it's going to happen, and I just, even the night that we met, I loved meeting him. I loved talking to him. It's still one of my favorite things in the world to do. You could probably see why when you heard our conversation just now. But that night, especially because the first 2 cruises that I went on, I was, still going through my depression. And I just wanted to, and my friend Lori will appreciate this, just have that sort of religious experience of communing with the music and not thinking about anything else, and just really savoring the fact that I finally felt like myself again. And I had no idea that in that one moment my whole life would change forever. So, going back to what I said before, do the things that you love, and only good flows from that. But it's just, it's funny because I would never, the way that I found out about the 80s cruise, which one of their partners is SiriusXM, and living in New York, I don't have a car, so I don't listen to SiriusXM. But one of my brothers, who lives in Delaware and does, when he heard about it on the station, he sent me a link, 80scruise.com. I still remember 2015, seeing the email, clicking on it, and it said that Jesse's Girl was among the many, many A-list performers coming on the cruise. And I just decided in that moment, I was like, I'm going on this cruise. And I had asked a few girlfriends if they wanted to come with me, and everyone said, oh yeah, that sounds great. And then, I think as we've all experienced, sometimes you want to do things and friends say they'd love to, and then, crickets when it comes time to booking. But I just decided I'm going to go by myself, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, because I made wonderful friends, and I still had a great time even though I was by myself. Because on the 80s cruise, you're not really by yourself. It's kind of like being in a really great high school or college reunion with people that love the same music and the same movies that you do. So it was just kind of a really powerful reminder that instead of trying to go play volleyball in a co-ed sports league when I'm not really a huge volleyball player, or any of the random things that sometimes you tell yourself you need to do to try and change the orbit of your social life. In the end, I just had to do something that I enjoyed and that I loved, and Steve was doing the same thing. So and yes, that's where I met my dear Lori, also another Jesse's Girl diehard fan. Let's see, so what else can I tell you guys? Let me see if I have any more questions in here. Oh, I think somebody asked me what's the worst date I've ever been on. I would have to say Tandem Bike Guy would certainly be up there, telling the story from meeting to the engagement, then on through COVID. Yes, so my friend Lisa in Washington State asks about telling the story of Steve and I meeting and the engagement. All of that actually is in the second book. Because again, this one is kind of more light, frothy, more kind of in the same vein as the blog, but the memoir really goes through all of the highs and lows that it took to get to lasting love at 45. I started to say something and I completely forgot. See, this is what happens. You lose your train of thought. Oh, somebody had asked me the worst date. So up there with Tandem Guy, and this is also in the future book, but it's a story worth telling. So again, trying to be agreeable to whatever somebody suggests. This guy that I met online suggested that we meet at a cigar club for dinner. I mean, it wasn't my first choice. Cigar smoke and meals don't really go together, but okay, fine. So we meet at this cigar club, and as you would imagine, you walk in, and it's the haze of smoke wafting towards you. So we go, we sit down, and he just, from the minute we sat down, he's like, let's get appetizers, let's get, he was really, okay, sure, whatever. Again, trying to be amenable. So we're well into the evening, and he shares the story of meeting a girl when he was traveling, and he bought her a nice lunch, and then she wouldn't even, take him upstairs. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh, is this the reason that we're having a decadent meal? So we're there a couple of hours, and he has this white shirt on. He got sauce on the front of his shirt. I mean, it was going downhill by the minute. Then the bill comes. And, it was a pretty significant number, and he sits there and he's hemming and hawing, and he's like, oh, this is a lot more expensive, and I usually only take people out for coffee. And I'm thinking to myself, you're the one who suggested this place. You're the one who suggested dinner and the appetizers and the dessert and everything else. So I glance down and I see the bill's well over $300. So as the waiter starts to walk away, I said, I'll get half. So call the waiter back, put down $150 because I knew I was never going to see this guy again. And one thing that, I'm a stickler about, as much as I believe a guy should pay on the first date, if you really know you're never going to see that person again, it's like you never want to feel that you've taken advantage of somebody. Even though, I feel like I earned every course in that meal. So, okay, split it, say goodnight. $150 later, smelling, reeking of cigars, going home thinking, why didn't I just say no to dinner? A few days go by, and I get a text message from him saying he had a great time, let's get together again, but this time it has to just be a walk in Central Park because he dropped a lot on that dinner. So I wrote him back, and this was one of my go-to excuses when I wasn't feeling it for someone. I just said, actually, I'm going to take a break from dating right now, but it was nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. So he texts me back, and he's like, I'm not stupid, and, I know that the chemistry wasn't there right away, and blah, 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 and I'm not even crazy about the fact that you're not Jewish, but I'm willing to put up with that, so, write me back and let me know when you're available, because my schedule is filling up. I posted the text exchange on Facebook. Somebody chimed in and said, yeah, his schedule's filling up, hopefully with therapy appointments. So, yeah, I would say that would probably be the worst date ever, and then Tandem Bike Guy would be number 2. But you'll see there's some other, worthy contenders in the book. One of the things that has always mystified me on first dates is when you go out with someone and they literally do not stop talking. It's kind of like a monologue. And every time you try and interject something, they just keep going. And I always thought the point of a date is to have a conversation and get to know someone, but I think there are a lot of people that either don't get out much, or they're used to just communicating online and don't know how to engage in a give and take. But I have to say, now that I'm thankfully coming into a new chapter of my life, that for all the, crazy, ungentlemanly characters, I've been very fortunate that most of the people that I've dated have been good, honorable people. I was never cheated on. I was never abused. It was just there are irreconcilable differences, and I think sometimes we try and ignore them for the sake of, okay, I really should be ready, and how many more times am I going to get the chance to connect with someone? But but and and a few, not so much anymore now, but there's two that I'm still good friends with and in touch with, and they're married happily, and I also say in the book that when you break up with someone, unless they've done something really horrible to you or just basically awful human being, you don't automatically stop caring about them. So for better or worse, sometimes a combination of both, I've stayed in touch with a lot of people that I've dated over the years, and that eventually has come to a close. But it's just like I said, everyone has their own trajectory in the journey to finding love, and there isn't one right way. And I just think too many times we get caught up in, okay, I'm at this age and I should be here, but I'm actually all the way over there. And especially now being with Steve, I just realized I couldn't have been the best version of myself and the partner that I want to be for him until really a couple of years ago. I had to go through everything that I went through. And I think that's just as important, as it's not only about finding someone that's good for you, but that you can be good for. Oh, thanks. Hi, Jerry. And also to someone who brings out the best in you. I remember one of my relatives saying, you want to be with someone that adds to your life. And I dated a lot of subtractions, I have to say. But I think I just, I appreciate where I am now because it took such a long journey to get here. One of the things that I always asked myself again and again, how do you know? How do you know when it's the right person? How do you know? And I would ask everyone I knew that was partnered up, how do you know? How do you know? And it's kind of like when it's not the right thing, you just do. And hi Philomena from Australia. Hi. And we knew very early on. And that was something I had really never experienced before. You have the haze of infatuation, but as far as that, really knowing you have a solid foundation with someone. And Steve had asked me before, what's the most romantic thing anyone I've dated has ever done. And I think the most romantic thing that anyone can do, and I'm going to try not to cry as I say this, is to accept you unconditionally for who you are, and make you feel that you're enough without having to change. And that is really a tremendous gift, and he has given me that. So that, I would say, is really the most romantic thing that anyone can give you, is just loving you for who you are. And a lot of times I think we try and shoehorn ourselves into someone else's life. And I feel like several of the people that I've dated, it was like, I love you, but, I love you, but. And I don't feel I love you, but here. I just feel like we love each other, period, the end. So that's my mushy mushy tale. I don't know if anyone has any final questions. We have about I guess a minute and a half to go, but I'm so appreciative of you all taking the time to do this. This was really fun. Thanks for putting up with our little technical glitch. And I'm just going to do, one little shameless plug. Since I am self-publishing, social media, word of mouth is so important. Right now, I think I've sold 24 books. So if you could please, share the link on Facebook and Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also reviews if you like the book, which hopefully you will after you read it. If you could post a review on Amazon. I'm still new to this whole self-publishing thing, but my understanding is the more reviews that you have of your book, the more you come up organically in search algorithms on the website. And I think Amazon accounts for 90% of book sales, which is why they're called Amazon. I miss you too, Lisa Draper. Can't wait to see you too. What else can I say except I hope you enjoy the book. I really appreciate you taking the time to celebrate with me, and I just want to raise a Oliver. Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So now I have to go on for oh gosh. I hope this thing isn't going to cut out in 15 seconds. But Oliver, one of my high school crushes, just joined from Toronto. Hello, friend. But I just want to say cheers to all of you. Thank you for your support. I wish you love and happiness, and look forward to seeing all of you soon in the near future. Oh, it didn't cut me off. Okay. All right. Well, now that Oliver has joined, Oliver, should I tell like tales of us from high school? But this is like a perfect illustration of I love you too, Lori. Thank you. Of how people can stay in your life as friends. Oliver and I had like a very brief thing in high school. We were living in Toronto just before my family moved back to New York. And then I remember there was some kind of drama around the prom that I went back for, and I had asked somebody else to go with me, and Oliver wanted to take me, and anyway, flash forward all these years later, and I was in Toronto, I think celebrating my 40th birthday about 7 years ago. And Oliver and I got together for dinner, and I don't even know how many years it had been at that point since we'd seen each other, but it was literally like no time had passed, and now he has a wonderful baby. I think he has a baby girl now. I'm not sure how old she is, but it was such a delight to talk to him and spend time with him, and so yeah, you just you never know where the road's going to take you when you stay in touch with someone special, and that was a really wonderful evening, Mr. Oliver, and you were definitely one of my big high school crushes. So all right, so we're now officially an hour and a half. I feel like I've probably talked you all to death, so I'm just gonna say cheers again. Let me know how you like the book. Please share on social media, post reviews on Amazon. The second book I'm hoping to release in November, but we'll see, since that's also the month of the wedding, so it might end up getting maybe pushed back to the beginning of the year. But again, thank you all so much for joining, and sending you lots of love. Bye!